We do have to go to our last guest of this evening on the theme of inspiring young rural New Zealanders. In this week's Farmers Weekly, the inspiring story this week from Farmstrong is on Kane Brisco. Kane is in his 7th year 50-50 share milking at Ohungai near Hara in South Taranaki, and he started his own social media page to get farmers talking. Kane says the need for more transparency when it comes to talking about the daily pressures of farming is what motivated him to create the Farm Fit New Zealand page and to start the conversation. Kane joins us now. Kane, welcome. You're quoted as saying we need to get better as a community at genuinely finding out how people are doing. But Kiwis, in particular farming Kiwis, let's be honest, as we've been talking tonight, quiet achievers, good is pretty suffice for most. How do we actually crack that?
Well, it comes down to, I guess, the average farmer is getting that courage to more or less pop their nuts out their guts and be honest with themselves firstly about how they are and how they're doing, accepting that and recognising it, and then being honest with their mates or their family or whoever's in their support network. We've got the old good answer for just about everything, and that does no one any favours. So it's up to not just industry leaders. We've got Farmstrong and the Mike Kings and the Tangaroa Walkers of the world talking about it and starting that conversation. But it takes the everyday guy next door to actually give an honest answer when he gets asked how he is or what's going on, or it's that simple. And that changes the whole atmosphere about how people talk to each other, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, especially when there's relatability. And you're a dairy farmer, you're filming these videos from the cabbie tractor or from the milking shed, and people can relate. What has the journey been like since that very first video you've put up and the feedback that you've got?
Scary. The whole journey's been scary because I am that average, typical farming caveman type bloke. So for me to stick my beak on the bloody camera is pretty nerve-wracking, and like the whole thing's just been about, if something I say or my vulnerability helps one person, then it's worth it. And that's sort of how I G myself up before any video or anything. But yeah, there's been a massive response really over the last couple of years. I get all sorts of messages from guys and girls about, talking about their challenges and what they've been through. And I guess importantly for me is what I'm doing is helping them or those that they know around them, which is, that's the rewarding part of it, I guess. But, it goes to show, like, I've had, messages from all walks of life, not just farmers. It's all sorts, and, from farm workers and even high school students right up to the older generation have actually messaged me and shared their stories with me, which is really humbling.
Now, the Facebook page is Farm Fit New Zealand, and I mean, farming is physically challenging, but your point of difference is, the one thing that you really do focus on strongly, I must say, is that physical activity is actually a way to unwind after doing physical activity all day.
Yeah, 100%. So I've been lucky enough to play a lot of sports throughout my farming career. And I know how helpful it's been through whatever challenges life has thrown at me. A part of that is having those transferable skills. So you can learn a lot from, particularly team sports or individual sports, that you can transfer some of those skills and understandings into real life situations. And the other part of that is, I guess, getting out off the farm. Most farmers need a reason to get off and get away and get off the farm. So using sport or training or exercise is a great way to do that. And, it gives you that mental refresh when you go away from farming and you're concentrating on something. There's not that clutter in your head. You can't think about farming while you're boxing or doing an intense workout. You've got to be focused on that. So I always found that gave me a real mental refresh. It gets the endorphins going, it picks you up, you feel a bit better, and you start creating new ideas in your head and new ways to approach whatever's going on in life.
And the stresses are many if we allow them to mount on top of us as well. And in my introduction, your quote was that the natural reaction is to withdraw. What was your journey to now?
Yeah, I guess I've had several journeys, several different challenges in life, some of them outside of farming and some of them inside. But I know when I guess the times I've struggled on farm and been under a lot of pressure and particularly those challenges you can't necessarily control. You can't control the weather or how much you're getting paid for some of your stuff, and those things mount up. You tend to work harder to try and fix it. And you tend to spend more time on the farm. You feel a little bit helpless, so you work harder and try and do all these things. You sacrifice your life just about to try and defeat these challenges you can't control. So I think that's pretty relatable to most farmers, and if they haven't come across that, they probably will in their farming career. So, and that's what we do. We put on the mask and we put our heads down and our asses up, and we work and we try and work our way out of the situation. But we've got to realise sometimes you can't work yourself out of those things, and in fact that's more detrimental than positive. So we've got to actually be able to have, I guess, the foresight and the acknowledgement of what the challenges are in front of us, to step back and say, how can I approach this differently? Sometimes, taking that bird's eye view can really help, put some clarity on what you're dealing with in some of those challenges and provide a bit of perspective. So, yeah, no, I've definitely been in that space where I've not left the farm for 2 or 3 months and just put my head down and not talk to anyone and typically not reached out for help or advice or anything like that. So, if you haven't been there, you probably will one day. So I'm of the feeling that we should be proactive about trying to do things when we are feeling better to help when we are, I guess, in a position where we're more likely to withdraw or put that mask on. So, that's what I've learned from that.
And there's so many comparisons to farm management versus how we manage ourselves and our own well-being that we could actually have some correlation between the two, because we certainly don't do that to our farm. Why do we do that to ourselves?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's simple. We're so proactive with how we manage our farms. We cut silage when there's excess pasture. We make hay when the sun shines. We plant crops for droughts and for winter. And I don't know what it is, but we don't take that philosophy onto ourselves. It's so simple when you step back and think about it. It's like, why aren't we proactive with our own health? And I think it partly comes down to maybe we're probably worried about what that looks like to other people around us, perhaps. I had a message from a guy actually not long, a couple of weeks ago, he's worried about being seen as lazy if he gets off the farm once or twice a week to go and do something for himself. There's that stigma, certainly when I was growing up, farmers work hard. That's part of our culture, I guess, is our work ethic. And we don't want to be seen to, God forbid, put ourselves before the cows or put ourselves before the land, because that would be seen as not caring. But I think, we've got to take a new approach to that. And my sort of thing is, we are the most valuable asset in our business or on our farm. Without us, the machine stops. So when you're the most important cog in the wheel, you better oil the bloody thing, because, if you don't, it breaks down.
Kane, I do have to say, though, I have actually noticed a real stigma change in the last couple of years. And dairy farmers that proudly say, I have a 5 and 2 roster, my staff get every second weekend off. I only milk once a month as the boss. Yeah. It's a badge of honour now that is a statement that you've got your shit together.
Yeah, and we are starting to see that. But I can tell you from some of the conversations I've had that it's a long way from being the norm, unfortunately. There are, I talked to someone not long ago that hadn't had a day off for 4 years. And I'm like, Jesus, mate, I wouldn't be doing it. It's still a massive massive badge of honour to say I haven't had a day off for a year or whatever. It's seen as it's like scoring the winning try in rugby, to win the bloody grand final. There's that correlation between success and not having a day off or something like that. So we are starting to see a change, I guess, with my generation and the ones coming through. But there's still needs to be a massive shift in how we see our role as farmers. And at the end of the day, we've all got families too. So, we've got to see ourselves as family men or women, however that looks. But just making some I guess steps towards making yourself a priority is really important.
I wonder how many funeral speeches included that he worked every day for 4 years.
Exactly, and it's I was like that. I've been through periods where I haven't had time off for a long time. In fact, I've never had a every second weekend roster in my life. So I can put my hand up and say I'm part of that problem. But it's something I'm working on, and it's something we include in our budget now to have regular time off. But yeah, exactly. It's so silly when you step back and think about it like that. We've just got this caveman brain that does things stupid sometimes. I don't know what it is, but it seems silly when you step back and put it like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Farming is a very emotional sport, Kane. Thank you so much for joining us here on Serious Country. Absolute privilege to have you on the show finally. Kane Brisco, a real inspiration there with the Farm Fit New Zealand Facebook page and this week's Farm Strong feature in Farmers Weekly. There was a lot of farms in that.
This is Sarah's Country.